For more on this story, we can bring in our international affairs editor, Douglas Herbert. Douglas, I wouldn't want to be Liz Truss today.
Yeah, I mean, look, and we're probably all getting sick of some of these cliches out there, right? The headlines, the breach of trust, matter of trust. But, they're cliches for a reason. There really has been a breach of trust. This is a government that has lost every shred of credibility. And this isn't even a matter of where you stand politically. This is within her own party, where she is now the butt of not just criticism, but often of ridicule. A prime minister who failed to heed all the warnings, including of the man who was running against her, Rishi Sunak, for the premiership, who basically said that the very economic plan that she had been putting forward, this unfunded tax-cutting plan at a time of high inflation, would be a recipe for absolute disaster for the UK economy, as it's proven. What's interesting here is, we were saying last week, well, there are two issues. Reassuring financial markets, because right now financial markets, global and domestic, dictate basically, prime ministerships and presidencies and so on and so forth. They are the kingmakers. But beyond that, there's the political question. So has Jeremy Hunt, the replacement, her replacement for chancellor that she brought in, has he done enough to reassure the markets? Are there enough patches in place right now? In recent days, in the wake of the announcement that they were going to backtrack on all these tax cuts for corporations, they'd already done so for the highest earning income brackets. We have seen the pound rally. We have seen UK shares rally a little bit. We've even seen government bond yields, doing okay. So that doesn't mean they're out of the woods. Far from it. The markets are not reassured. They're just slightly stabilized. But that does not address the question of her political demons right now and the fate of her prime ministership. It's still very much up in the air. Yes, there are those in the party still circling the wagons, trying to protect her. A few allies left basically saying that the Conservative Party can't afford to have the fracas of another leadership contest so soon after the Boris Johnson scandals brought him down. So they're trying to sort of shore that up in the name of stability, political stability for the party. But the fact is, and it bears reminding again and again, I keep saying it, this is because of a quirk of Britain's politics. She was elected not in a general election, but by a handful of Tory party members. 0.2% of Britain's electorate elected this woman or chose this woman to be prime minister. So she did not have a mandate. Far from that. And even within her party right now, she still doesn't have what would amount to, in most people's perception, a mandate.
And the thing is, whether Truss stays or goes is besides the point, because the country has real problems to grapple with. Inflation reaching a 40-year high today at 10.1%. So they need someone to fix these problems. If not Liz Truss, then who?
Yeah, I mean, talk about being up against it. The inflation right now, you just mentioned that number. It's consumer prices, 10.1%, driven largely by a giant leap over the past year, almost 15% in food prices. We've heard about the food banks across Britain, how hard and impoverished a lot of the population that had been surviving, doing okay in a pretty dire economic situation, which had already been created under Boris Johnson. Now they are being extremely hard hit. And the real question here now, and it sounds like a bunch of mumble-jumble jargon, but it isn't on a human level, something called the triple lock for pensions and benefits in Britain. This is what everyone in that country is looking at. What is a triple lock? It basically is this rule which the Conservative Party and Liz Truss herself had said she would abide by during her campaign, that that pensions and benefits would go up in line with inflation or with wages or 2.5%, whichever of those three is the highest. Now they have not committed themselves to sticking with that pledge of that so-called triple lock. That is, people are now really worried because this September inflation rate for last month, the figure we're seeing today, which is showing, the inflation for food higher than it's been in 40 years, that figure today will be used. It matters because it will be used to calculate the level of benefits next April. I know that seems like several months off, and it is several months off, but it is a giant concern. People in Britain are asking, will pensions and benefits rise in accordance with this double-digit galloping inflation? And they're not getting reassurances, at least not now. Maybe it will be asked at Prime Minister's questions today, whether the British people being hardest hit right now will be able to count on that so-called triple lock and their pensions keeping pace with the soaring meteorological, astronomical cost of living.
You'll be watching the Prime Minister questions with me, Doug. Thank you very much for that, Douglas Herbert there.